CBR presents the Unmade sequel, answering the would've, could've, and should've of scrapped superhero follow-ups. Today I'm discussing the notorious Hulk 2003. With an okay box office and moderately solid reviews, why didn't this film get a sequel? Was there ever one planned? Is the movie as bad as you think? Well, just like the Hulk movie rights, the answer is complicated. Let's begin. So what can you expect from the Unmade sequel? Fair question, since this is my first attempt at something like this, and you're probably pretty confused on what's going on. Not as confused as audience were back in 2003 after watching an Ang Lee Hulk movie, but still. For this video, I'm talking Hulk 2003 and uncovering some potential sequel information that you may not have known. What? I mean, I certainly didn't know all of this. Then at the end, I'll talk about what a sequel set in the MCU would actually look like today, meaning an Eric Bana Mark Ruffalo fight? Or would they be bros? Yeah, so it's gonna be a lot of fun. 2003 was a fascinating time for Marvel superhero movies. 1998's Blade and especially 2000's X-Men proved that, hey, there was something mainstream about these Marvel properties that people would actually enjoy.
My brothers.
And it felt like the floodgates were opening. 2002 had the smash hit of Spider-Man, and then 2003 saw the absolute banger X2, the Daredevil misfire, and then the Ang Lee Hulk movie. Hulk had always been a popular main-ish stream character dating back to the 70s TV show with that really sad ending theme music, and producers were itching to get a Hulk movie off the ground ever since like 1990. You might think that he's just a big green guy smashing things. How hard could that script be to write? Apparently pretty dang hard. Throughout that decade, multiple drafts of a script were written, but none of them were satisfactory for the studio. Earlier drafts had Hulk fighting terrorists, Hulk fighting a school of sharks, and Hulk fighting genetically engineered insect men, but none of that really stuck and made producers happy. That's a shame because Hulk fighting sharks sounds like a slam dunk idea. Probably better than Hulk fighting poodles like in the movie we got. Yes, there were other dogs there, and the Hulk dogs are comic accurate, but still, sharks are way cooler. Hey, real quick, be sure to hit that subscribe button while you're here. Thanks. A revolving door of talent was attached to this Hulk movie, with Captain America director Joe Johnston joining then leaving the project, and prolific personality J.J. Abrams being brought in at one point to rewrite it. After getting pretty settled on one version of the script, director Ang Lee came aboard and had his producing partner James Schamus do another pass on the script. Ang Lee wanted a bit more classic monster movie feels like Frankenstein and Jekyll and Hyde infused in the story, along with some Greek mythology, which I guess explains the shot of Hulk holding the big gamma sphere like Atlas. In the end, the script had 3 credited writers, which shows how many ideas were used from those original 90s drafts, and it was finally ready to go. Spider-Man composer Danny Elfman was brought on to compose, excellent choice, and Eric Bana was cast as the Hulk. Other names that were floating around to either have been offered or auditioned or considered for the role include Billy Crudup, Johnny Depp, Steve Buscemi, David Duchovny, and Jeff Goldblum. Man, can you imagine a Jeff Goldblum Hulk? Perfect.
I'm proud of you all.
Ed Norton supposedly expressed interest in playing the Hulk, but turned it down because he didn't like the script. We know how that would turn out. Although I think all these other actors are more interesting, the fact of the matter is I think one of the big problems with this movie is the Bruce Banner character. Yes, on paper it makes sense. Bruce is supposed to be a repressed piece of wet cardboard for most of the runtime in order to make his angry outbursts mean something when it's unlocked within him. But the miscalculation was that while he's playing Bruce, he's really boring to watch. That's not really Eric Bana's fault though. Both Bana and Jennifer Connelly playing Betty Ross give weirdly dramatic performances which fit with the monster lurking inside tragedy, but maybe isn't the most exciting thing for a superhero movie about a big green dude who smashes things. But how was this movie received? Did it warrant a sequel? Well, kind of. The movie opened to mixed reviews, yes, but it was a pretty good-sized hit. It had the 16th biggest opening weekend ever at the time, and was the 14th highest grossing film of 2003. But the mixed reaction caused that box office to sink a bit after its opening weekend, and due to its high budget, it probably broke about even. But even with that, there were still plans for a sequel that would have brought the franchise to an interesting place. Let's discuss that. So here's the thing about superhero movies. For as long as they've been around, when the movie is close to opening, the biggest question that always arises is, what's next? I think the fascination to always focus on the future is what has helped make the MCU such a success. Sure, the movies are great, but they figured out that by using post-credit scenes, they could straight up tease the audience with just enough information about where the story will go next. It's worked wonders, and this mindset to always ask about sequels seemed to always be prevalent. For example, back in 2003, at the world premiere of Hulk, the producer, Avi Arad, who is worth talking about in a whole separate video, talked about how the sequel for Hulk was already being written. It was here that he dropped the first details of what probably would have happened if there was a Hulk 2. Some of it was pretty obvious, some of it was fascinating. Like, he started off by saying that the script would delve further into Bruce Banner's epic struggles with his inner demons. Which, I mean, yeah, of course that's what would happen. It would be weird if he was like, yeah, the second Hulk film sees Bruce perfectly content with his past and the monster inside him. But it's what he said next that's the most interesting. He said that this struggle would result in the emergence of a new personality, the more evil Grey Hulk. I love the story of Grey Hulk. So in the comics, a lot of people know that the Hulk didn't start off as green. He was actually gray in earlier issues because that's what Stan Lee had in mind. But turns out gray is harder to print, so they soon turned him green. Then I think in a very clever bit of continuity, they actually wrote that color change into the character's history. The Grey Hulk personality is actually different from the green, more savage Hulk. Over the years, the Grey Hulk personality has been a bit more refined. He's now the smarter, more selfish version of Banner who isn't afraid to put himself first. He's not as strong as Green Hulk, but he's still no slouch, and he goes by his mob enforcer name, Joe Fixit. Now, when Arad said they wanted to bring in Grey Hulk, it's unclear what exactly he had in mind. Peter David's run of comics had given us plenty of Grey Hulk, but in 2003, when the Hulk movie came out, a new Hulk Grey series was released just a few months after the movie that talked about Hulk's origins as a gray version of himself. Who knows what the Hulk sequel's gray version would have been, but one thing's for sure, it probably wouldn't have been great for Bruce. I know I harped on the generic description before, but using the third personality to create a better understanding between Bruce and Hulk would have been great. But Arad also said he was thinking about putting in the Leader and the Abomination as villains, which honestly sounds a bit like overstuffing, which is something Arad tends to like to do. They were so confident in this sequel that they announced a release date of May 2005, but it was scrapped in favor of the reboot with Ed Norton. In 2014, the writer James Schamus discussed a bit on how he was approaching the sequel and revealed some interesting plot developments as well. He said that the movie would take place on a Native American reservation and be all about radioactivity and be really political. He was very excited about this pitch, and frankly, yeah, I can see why. I think this would have been a great way to continue the story set up in the first movie. Yeah, you'd have to find a reason to get Bruce out of South America and to the United States again, but I'm sure you could find a solid reason. Let's speculate on what would have worked. So because the military always likes to be the military, maybe they would continue their work from the first movie and this time try to recreate the circumstances that Hulkified Bruce to engineer their very own super soldiers. This could lead to Abomination and the Leader. Bruce would understand that this needs to be stopped and finds a cause worth fighting for. This type of gamma radiation testing is dangerous, and Bruce has to maybe defend a nearby Native American reservation from suffering the fallout of the military's testing, painting Bruce as a loner outsider but on his way to becoming a hero. Because thinking about it, Hulk 2003 didn't really paint a hero's story. He's a dude who has an accident happen to him, the military blows the heck out of the desert trying to stop him, they capture him, and then crazy Nick Nolte arrives with absorbing man powers to attack Bruce. It's a very personal story of a man overcoming his past and his deranged father, but his actions didn't have a larger effect on the outside world. He was very reactive. Having the sequel show Bruce learning to accept the other personality within him while still being a little afraid of it and learning how to be a tragic hero would have been the logical step for the sequel. Now the question is, should Hulk 2 have been a thing? See, that's where things get tough. The first movie is a film that on rewatch isn't as terrible as you remember, but also isn't necessarily good. Hey, one of the most divisive things about it at the time was the comic book panel editing style, and while that was probably super jarring back in 2003, I can't help but think how awesome something like that would be today to cut through all the glut of plain looking superhero movies we have. But if a sequel was made back in 2005, and if it was a flop or a hit, how would that have affected things in the MCU? Honestly, I don't see a Hulk sequel being a smash hit in 2005, and the worst thing that might have happened if that movie flopped would have been maybe no Incredible Hulk movie in 2008. But who knows? From a non-box office perspective, I would like to be hopeful that a sequel to Hulk would have had a better story. The first movie required the character to be boring and needed to set the stage for a whole franchise. A second movie would have been more interesting as we got deeper into the character dynamics and explored Bruce's psyche as well as his relationship with Betty. So yes, a sequel should have been made, though of course we never got one. The project was scrapped and attention was turned to a reboot, which would see Universal distribute a new Hulk that was more accessible, and in Kevin Feige's words, would really start the Marvel Hulk franchise. The rest is pretty much history. But would a sequel today actually work? How would the world react? Let's discuss that along with other sequel possibilities right now. So if I do more of these, this last section will ask the question, should the movie I'm talking about have a sequel set outside the MCU, a complete reboot, or tie into the MCU through the multiverse? And to me, if we woke up tomorrow hearing about a Hulk 2003 sequel, I both see the benefit of setting the story outside the MCU and making it an MCU continuation. I'll discuss both. So if this story was set outside the MCU, then I think you could do more things with the Hulk character and actually make him a scary, dangerous threat like he is in the comics. One thing that I think the 2003 movie has in its favor is that it isn't that afraid to let Hulk cause uncontrolled collateral damage. One thing I really like in this movie is the way the Hulk moves and operates. There are times when he's so angry, you see the radiation pulsating from his body. Then as he gets angrier, his body gets even bigger and scarier. It's that level of escalation that I think is missing in the MCU. Plus, the MCU had to quickly turn the Hulk into a marketable hero, and heroes don't go on rampages causing civilian casualties. So it's the sanding down of the edges of the Hulk character that I believe has really hurt the Hulk in the MCU. So that's why setting a story completely outside the franchise would be better for Hulk. Imagine some of the great, personal, deeply tragic, and monstrous storylines we could get in a Hulk 2003 sequel. Also, I mentioned it before, but I think the style of this movie would be incredibly interesting for today's time. But then, on the flip side of things, I could see a pretty easy way to continue Bana's Hulk story in the MCU. I don't think Bana is a big enough draw to have a No Way Home style reunion with a Norton version of the Hulk and the Ruffalo version of the Hulk, so any adventure where the three of them go on a Hulk adventure together just doesn't sound right. Like, remember how we all cheered when Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire showed up in No Way Home? Of course you do. The movie literally has pauses built in for the audience to cheer. Yeah, that wouldn't happen with Hulks, I don't think. They would not be bros. Though both Bana and Norton would look at Ruffalo's smart Hulk body and wonder if that was the right or wrong decision to make. And yes, don't worry, I'm aware that Norton's Hulk and Ruffalo's Hulk are the same Hulk, so they wouldn't necessarily need a multiverse team up, but come on, they act like different guys. I think it would still work. So let's talk about the other option. Instead of friends, the MCU could use Bana's Hulk as more of a cautionary tale. I've been very vocal about my frustration with Ruffalo's Hulk, even though I love Ruffalo as Bruce, but I just don't feel like the character has moved in the right direction. There hasn't seemed to be any consequence to him erasing the Hulk personality when he became Smart Hulk, and that's just no fun. Maybe bringing back Eric Bana's Hulk could work if you make the character Maestro. Maestro is a future version of the Hulk who has all of Banner's smarts with all of Hulk's strength, but none of the heroic morals. He's a survivor of a version of Earth plagued by nuclear fallout and has worked hard to become the leader over the remaining Earthlings. He's incredibly dangerous. Maybe our pseudo-sequel to Hulk 2003 could be an instance where we see that Ross's obsession with destroying Hulk somehow led to nuclear war and wiped out everyone, leaving a fused version of Bana's Hulk and his Bruce Banner, and now he's turned evil and insane. The reason I like this is because 2003's Hulk really hammers home the idea of the monster inside Bruce and the lengths people will go in order to stop him. We could see the consequences of that with the introduction of Maestro and have him battle our Hulk for some reason. I've always liked the idea of Kang going around the timelines and recruiting evil versions of heroes to fight the real heroes, and Maestro working with Kang would be the perfect example for this. It would provide a sense of closure for Bana's Hulk, albeit a tragic one, but then again, his character was always tragic. His movie was tragic. The whole point was to see a man with serious trauma have all that unleashed onto the world, and maybe it's not a happy ending, but I would love to hear your thoughts on whether this movie should have any sort of sequel at all. Hulk 2003 is a weird movie that helped define the beginnings of our superhero obsession, but it never did get a sequel. One was pretty close to being made, but it was scrapped altogether. Now, over 20 years after its release, maybe it's time to revisit it. I'm not saying it's a good movie, but if you're looking for a film that tries to do something with Banner's character and is a lot of fun to look at, then it's definitely worth your time. The Unmade sequel would have been an interesting film that had the potential of disrupting everything we know about superheroes. If that was a huge success, maybe the entire MCU would look quite different. Wow, that's kind of crazy to think about, right? Would you watch a Hulk sequel? Let me know what you think in the comments below, and while you're there, talk about other big canceled superhero sequels that you want to know more about. Thanks for watching CBR. See you next time.